Chainsaw Man is officially out, and it's been one of the most hyped shows in anime history thus far. I've seen countless people say it had a 10 out of 10 first episode, and it was the best first episode in anime history. No hate to anyone that believes that, but I just didn't think it's the case. I'm not even sure it'd be in my top 20 for best first episode in an anime. God forbid I say that, otherwise most of the fandom will come and assault my very existence. Any of these anime 100% had a better first episode, and there's definitely some others as well. But I'm not going to be talking about most of these in this video. I am thankful for the people that are saying that Chainsaw Man had the first best episode in anime history, because it got me thinking, what anime does have the first best episode? Now, before I get into the video, I did think Chainsaw Man's first episode was pretty good. I just didn't think it warranted a 10 out of 10. I'm not being a hater or contrarian here. I just thought it was a solid start to the series and nothing more. I am, like many others, patiently waiting for the next episode each week. By the way, what I mean by solid is, I thought it was an 8 out of 10 first episode, probably. And thus far, I'd probably give the series around an 8 out of 10. Trust me, I am hyped for the show, and I haven't even read the manga. It's extremely hard to have a perfect 10 out of 10 first episode, and I don't typically try to rate individual episodes because it's completely unnecessary in most situations. First episode's purpose is to retain viewers and draw more people into watching the show. In most cases, the first episode is a ton of setup for the future of the series. It'll introduce the story's basic premise and the main characters that the story revolve around. I do think it's very, very hard to have a perfect episode, especially so early on. Usually those perfect 10 out of 10 episodes are predicated by the groundwork laid in previous episodes. So now you're asking, what is the best first episode in anime history, or at least in my opinion? The best first episode in anime history comes from the Rising of the Shield Hero. Now, when people bring up Rising of the Shield Hero, the first thing people probably think of is how bad Season 2 was. Get that out of your head for the purposes of this video. I hated the Rising of Risha, the Rising of the Shield Hero Season 2 as well, but go back and actually think of how great the first episode was in the series. Now, it technically is cheating because the runtime is at almost 48 minutes, which is the equivalent to 2 episodes, but I do think it was a great idea for this anime specifically, and it was a fantastic introduction into the show. Having extended first episodes should become more of the norm for similar types of series to get more people interested in it. If the introduction episode is longer, you can convey more about the world, story, and characters, as well as other things. But I digress from the point of this video. The first episode of The Rising of the Shield Hero introduces the viewer to Naofumi Iwatani, a college sophomore with self-proclaimed otaku tendencies. He still lives at home because he helped rein in his younger brother. He doesn't need to have a part-time job because he gets an allowance as well. He frequents the library when he's low on funds, and that's where his life changes forever. Naofumi accidentally drops several books onto the ground and picks up the book that transports him into a brand new world. The book is called The Records of the Four Cardinal Weapons. That book informs Naofumi of some of the rules of the world, as well as what weapon each cardinal hero gets. A sword, bow, spear, and shield. Of course, he makes note that the shield isn't a weapon and subsequently becomes the shield hero. While I was rewatching the first episode, he also sees what seems to be a picture of Malty and says she looks bitchy, which is obviously hilarious and accurate. Now back to the story. Naofumi with 3 others are summoned to save the world and become the 4 cardinal heroes. Naofumi is the only person willing to hear the summoners out at first, which provides a little taste as to the many disagreements that proceed between him and the 3 other cardinal heroes. The 4 cardinal heroes introduce themselves to Alt-Cray Melremark, the King of Melremark. The cardinal heroes and their weapons are as follows. Rena Amaki, Sword Hero, 16 years old. Motoyasu Kitamura, Spear Hero, age 21. Itsuki Kawasumi, Bow Hero, 17 years old. I've already said everything for Naofumi, but to repeat, Naofumi Iwatani, the Shield Hero, 20 years old. He was the last one to introduce himself. The king didn't even acknowledge Naofumi's existence, brushing him off before he even got a chance for his introduction. A clear sign of hatred from the get-go. It's worth noting here that each of the cardinal heroes may only wield their weapon. So, for example, Naofumi can only use his shield and the powers he gains with it. He can't pick up a sword or any other weapon. The king states the general reason why these 4 guys were summoned to this world. If the calamities brought on by the waves are not stopped, the world will end. Essentially, think of these waves like a video game, specifically an RPG, because many other things are video game-like as well. The cardinal heroes can see their stats, statuses, party, and just about anything in a user interface just like a video game. Each hero and person within their party have their own levels as well. These waves are required timed story events that need to be finished, with each one being harder than the last. People know exactly when a wave is going to occur because of a dragon hourglass. Each country has one in their possession. First wave was fought back luckily before the cardinal heroes were even summoned. After being told this news, the Cardinal Heroes gathered together, trying to make sense of the weird situation that they had been placed in. They realized that they're from parallel worlds, each with a different version of Japan. In this meeting, the viewer already gets a taste of how the shield hero is treated within the party. They make fun of the fact that he is the shield hero because nobody ever wants to play that class. There's also a noticeable disconnect between the 3 other heroes and Naofumi. Naofumi during this discussion even decides how he'll run his party, stating that he will defend his party with his life, which he subsequently does throughout the show, even in situations where it seems extremely stupid to do so. Naofumi sees this opportunity as a new chance in life and wants to seize it. The next day, the Cardinal Heroes return to the throne room where they are greeted by the greatest warriors within the land. These warriors get to choose who they will fight alongside, and nobody chooses to fight with Naofumi initially. Multi decides to leave Motoyasu's group and join the shield hero for her own nefarious purposes, which we aren't made aware of yet. Since she was the only person to join Naofumi, he wants to keep her safe because of the warmth she showed towards them. A perfectly normal reaction, especially since Naofumi has been treated poorly by everyone up until this point. The heroes are provided funds each month, but for the first month, Naofumi gets a bit more since he has to recruit his own followers. Multi and Naofumi go through the town exploring, buying new equipment, and fighting monsters on the outskirts of town. I do have to point out that she spends 480 out of Naofumi's 800 silver that he gets. Multi uses her good looks to appeal to Naofumi, who is still very naive at this point. After the expenses from Naofumi's gear as well, he is left with 200 silver. As night approaches, the party goes to a pub that doubles as an inn, where they enjoy a meal. Naofumi decides to go to bed early so that he can start grinding levels early in the morning. Naofumi has probably one of the worst experiences you can have upon waking up. All of his items and money are stolen. He's then dragged in front of the other Cardinal Heroes and the king. Multi betrays Naofumi and claims he tried sexually assaulting her. Nobody believes a word that Naofumi says, siding with Multi. Multi even gave the chainmail that was Naofumi's to Motoyasu, the spear hero, whose party she joins afterwards. She was completely prepared to drag Naofumi's name through the mud. She had the entire act all ready and even had lingerie evidence prepared. Naofumi realizes he's been played and now knows they are all trash human beings. After this realization, he demands to be returned home. Why should he defend the kingdom if he's treated so poorly? Cardinal Heroes are told that they cannot return home until all 4 Cardinal Heroes meet their end, so he has to remain fighting off the waves in hopes that they find a way to actually return home when those waves are finished. Word of Naofumi's disgusting acts spread throughout the kingdom like wildfire, meaning everywhere he goes, he will be treated differently and like complete garbage. Naofumi storms out of the castle, throwing his remaining money away, saying that's what Multi was looking for in the first place. Now he is weak, has no equipment, has nobody that'll help him, and is flat broke. He's starting from zero and playing the game of life on the hardest difficulty. I have to show some respect to Elhart the blacksmith, who was going to punch Naofumi for what he did to Multi. Elhart looked into Naofumi's eyes and made his own judgment on the matter. He did not think Naofumi did it and gave him a parting gift, which is the shield hero's iconic cape. To be fair, Naofumi paid him back the 5 copper that was requested for it, and obviously this gesture gave Elhart a lot of business in the future because he ended up making the right call and made a friend in Naofumi. After the accusation, Naofumi assumes the role of villain, and to be honest, he needs to. Absolutely nobody treats him with respect, so why should he act nice to others? He can't trust anybody, so he needs to look out for himself. Naofumi now has 2 massive problems in the form of money and leveling. He needs to find ways to make money and somehow grind levels even though it takes him forever to kill mobs. He does have ridiculous defensive abilities and is useful in things like foraging though. Luckily for Naofumi, he stumbles across Belukis the slave trader, who has a little girl named Raftalia for sale. As everybody knows, she is a very important character for the future of the anime, and that's where the episode ends. The transaction for her occurs in the very next episode. Rising of the Shield Hero does a fantastic job world building in that first episode. You get a general idea of how the world works. It's a world of fantasy and magic. There are monsters, low-level areas, dungeons, anything you can think of from an RPG, including a built-in user face for the heroes to show statuses, skills, and the like. It's medieval-like in nature. There are no modern inventions like electricity or motor vehicles, but there is magic. The anime also does a great job showing the relationship between Naofumi and the Cardinal Heroes, but overall, the entire kingdom, they look down on the Shield Hero. They think he is worthless, weak, inferior, and trash. The kingdom is a matriarchy, so Naofumi's crime of sexual assault is viewed even worse. It is usually punished by death. He only lives because he is the Shield Hero. The writing for their relationships here is fantastic. It makes you hate the other characters that aren't Naofumi. Obviously, you start hating the Cardinal Heroes at the beginning, but the king and his daughter, Multi, are the leaders in that hate department. Now, remember back to when none of the warriors were willing to join Naofumi. Obviously, this is a very important scene, but I feel like people underestimate it. Naofumi's whole attitude towards the world changes. At first, he thinks positively upon being isekai isekai to this new world. He sees a beautiful new world and a new lease on life. He has the chance to become a beloved hero and perhaps even find love. The scene where nobody joins his party was the powder keg being formed in his mind. People clearly did not like him. Malty's accusations were the spark or the tipping point for him and ultimately broke him. They did not let Naofumi have a singular say on the matter, they just judged him immediately. To be perfectly honest, the heroes are trash at everything, period. The other cardinal heroes are pretty worthless when it comes to fighting, or relying on them for anything as the series goes on as well. This first episode sets up the anime perfectly for the future. After watching the first episode, myself and any other viewer are interested in many things in the many storylines Shield Hero has. People wonder if he'll get their respect back on the kingdom. People want to see what the ways are like. They want to see if Naofumi changes at all. Perhaps maybe clear his name of the accusations, which, spoiler alert, he does. And on top of that, I would assume one of the biggest reasons why most people wanted to continue watching is to see some type of revenge on Malty and the king, because they are among the most hated anime characters in history. Since he was treated so harshly, he assumes that villain role, not trusting others and looking out for himself. It takes a very long time for Naofumi to even trust Raftalia, who has been protecting him since essentially day one. Malty's betrayal broke him and brought out his otaku tendencies. In the introduction, before being isekai, he definitely didn't seem to have many friends and just remained at home relaxing. This means his social skills weren't the greatest. Naofumi, upon being isekai, at least tried to change a bit. He was willing to converse with others, but that betrayal shut him off to others, going back to being a loner. People want to see Naofumi grow both as a character and in level. They want him to become ridiculously overpowered. And obviously, as the show goes on, just in season 1, he becomes pretty overpowered compared to the other cardinal heroes, despite being underleveled compared to them. It's just the beginning of a very long journey. I'd also say that Naofumi becoming an outcast was a blessing in disguise and helped him grow. He had to learn how to barter, trade, and converse with others. He had to learn the land and try to work on his reputation slowly, one moment at a time. While his abrasive talk and attitude doesn't help him with others at times, his actions definitely do. He never tries to rip people off, he just wants to be treated fairly. Remember that actions speak louder than words, and as the Shield Hero anime continues, Naofumi's actions are a constant reminder that he is a great guy. I watched The Rising of the Shield Hero dubbed, and I feel like it's one of the better dubbed shows. Specifically, Naofumi's voice actor for season 1, Billy Kametz, may he rest in peace. He always had the perfect inflection in his voice to convey the various moods of the Shield Hero. You could hear the difference in his voice when Naofumi is talking to a friend and anyone else. That difference can be heard in the first episode as well. Before he was betrayed, he was hopeful. Afterwards, it was much more monotonous and sorrowful. It was easily one of the best dubbed performances for an anime character ever. I love The Rising of the Shield Hero Season 1 so much, which I gave a 9 out of 10. What's my rating for the second season? I really don't want to talk about it, but I do think the second half of Season 2 definitely felt more like the first season. Just still not as good, unfortunately. I do still have hope for this series, though. If this video does well, I'll explain why those other anime that I posted at the beginning had 10 out of 10 first episodes, maybe 2 or 3 of them. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.